Very warm welcome to all of you. Today we are going to decade as to what happened in the Ukhrul. And I'm very happy to tell you that today uh, I'm joined by Mr. Oinam Bhagat, who's a professor, understands the subject, Suhas ji, who's a security expert, who understand what it means in context of community. He understand how security functions largely. He understands the issue of rights and he understands the issue of ethnic strife. And I'm also joined by Major Amit Bansal, who has served in Assam Rifle, person who is deeply involved in certain parts of peace process, but that I would not take up in this conversation. But what is disturbing is that the sort of violence which has erupted and broken a sense of peace and normalcy which we thought has come in Manipur. Now, let me just take you to one part of it, which is when victims Thango Khai Hauke, Jamkodin Hauke, and Holstein Baite. 31, 35, 20, they were stabbed and they were shot dead. One. Secondly, this happened in the Ukhrul area, Naga area. So, first thing which I would like to bring to the notice of our viewers is this something different? I'll come to you, Mr. Bhagat, first. Is this violence different? Why has this happened in this area? And what does it look like? Doesn't it look like some sort of a revenge killing?
To me, Kartikeya.
Yes.
Okay. See, this is very, very unfortunate. And this must somewhere stop. Somewhere it has to stop. It cannot go on. Now, uh, it is a spiraling of certain way of contestation that we have seen, both in the valley as well as in the hill. And this goes back decades long. If you remember 92 onwards, Naga dominated area becoming Naga inhabited area exclusively. Now you have also Kuki inhabited, Kuki exclusive in Kangpokpi and Surachandpur. Then you are also having these hardliners within the Meiteis in the valley is almost like a Meitei inhabited. This cannot go on. It goes against the very spirit of democracy. Somewhere, I mean, you have anger over each other, but you cannot go into this politics of killing and wiping out and building up districts exclusively on ethnicity. It's as good as saying ब्राह्मण्स के लिए एक डिस्ट्रिक्ट होगा, कायस्थ के लिए एक डिस्ट्रिक्ट और दलितों के लिए एक डिस्ट्रिक्ट होगा. It is as bad even to imagine. Somewhere down the line, those who are directly responsible for this must try to understand. I mean, you can see that Kuki habitation is all around the valley, in the hills around the valley, you must have seen. And many see apprehension within the Nagas and Meiteis that what is this, that they are all infiltrating, something of that kind. But at the same time, you also have Nagas spread out in many areas. Meiteis are also spread out in the valley. Unfortunately, law does not allow them to go up to the hills. But somewhere we have to all amicably think through that let us side by side exist. It has been happening earlier. Kom and Meitei and Kuki and in Tangkhul areas it also has been happening. But there are certain sections in all the groups. I'm not
You know
talking.
why I asked this, Bhagat Saab? Because it looks like an ambush. I'll come to you, Mr. Bansal. I'll come to you, Suhasi. It looked like an ambush. Uh, first there was firing, and then they came to the bunker, killing and decapitation. Yesterday I was uh, talking and I said this decapitation is reminding me of certain events and timelines in Africa where decapitation is followed by killing. Suhasi, there is also another element. This place, one, had no security post, and there was a security post which for very any reason was moved away for operational reasons. So that's one. And does Ukhrul killing adds a new chapter because it's a Naga dominated area? Does it open up a new dimension in the in context of the security grid or the security
No,
issue?
no, I don't think it's a new dimension. It is. It has been in existence for a long period of time, and I can tell personally that I had received calls prior, much before the start of the riots in the Imphal Valley. Some of the Nagas, because I'm connected with the civil society groups, expressing apprehension about the settlement of the cookies in the Naga inhabited areas because there are no restrictions. And in fact, once the riot started and when huge number of cookies were displaced from the valley, the concerns of the Nagas were that these cookies have lots of resources. They come from the government service, so they will come up and buy the lands in Ukhrul and surrounding areas. And Nagas are going to become minority in their own lands. I don't want to mention the names, but people from the civil society groups of the Nagas have called me up repeatedly, and I try to assuage that this is possibly not the way to look at things. But the way I look at it at this point of time is that there are talks going on, and talks are being held by the Ministry of Home Affairs with the Kuki groups with respect to creation or some kind of autonomous arrangement for the cookies. Now, if you create for the cookies, of course, the Nagas feel completely threatened about it. And when you cannot work out or create an atmosphere, when you make arrangement for each community by sitting across with all the communities, then these things are bound to happen and they will increase. Because if you are going to create, for example, certain areas for the cookies, and if the Nagas have some kind of demands over that, and if it challenges the whole Nagalim or the Greater Nagaland, whatever you call, as demanded by the NSC and IM and other groups, of course they will retaliate. So the way I see it is that there are going to be more clashes depending on the outcomes which are being of the talks which are being held in Delhi. If you look at the Article 371C of the Constitution of India, there is one particular arrangement for the hill tribes. Now, what you are trying to do is trying to create separate arrangements for different communities. And these are realities, because the talks are being held and it's being reported. And there was also a report saying that, prior to the start of the talks, even an agreement with the Kuki groups who are in suspension of operation was about to be signed and etc. So these are realities. So in one hand, myself, Bhagat, and etc., we could say, yes, this is not the way to look at things. But there are political groups who see it completely differently, and it is the failure of the government of India. That my own hunch is, if you cannot create an atmosphere where you can bring the Meiteis, Cookies, and the Nagas, the three dominant groups, in one table to find out some kind of a solution, whatever it might be, you would be creating more problems. You are just putting, petrol into the fire.
Major Bansal, your opening comment?
Yes, Kartikeya, I wanted to say from the very starting, you spoke about Ukhrul district and the Naga factor.
GG,
So
I
we
did.
in a military, we plot everything on the map first. So although this village where this incident has taken place, Thowai Kuki they call it, it is geographically in Ukhrul district. I agree with that. But if you see its proximity with the Naga villages, its proximity with the Meitei villages, because it's bang on the border of Ukhrul. The moment you cross Imphal East district and you enter into Ukhrul, the first village you encounter is this Thowai Kuki village. So while the Meitei villages like Yanglang, Pokpi, and all these places, they are barely 2 kilometers away from this village. The nearest Naga village is about 10 kilometers away. So you may call it geographically under a Naga-dominated district, but if you see the locality of this district, there are 3-4 villages, Jalambang and all Thowai Kuki. These 3-4 villages are located very close and very close proximity of the Meitei villages. So I personally, as far as my analysis goes, I completely rule out any Naga factor in that. However, as Dr. Chakma has said, uh, I cannot be more agreed than this because see, tribals stay in a different way, and those kind of things, the things have been in the process in the past. These will have to be materialized. Could have materialized long back. These things have not been materialized, and that's the reason because this current conflict has taken place. So I would request that we keep this Thowai Kuki issue because the way things have taken place. And I must say, one thing I've seen, and I would take a minute more. One thing I've seen in this entire violence, which was not seen anywhere in the past, also, is the kind of hatred, the kind of vengeance people are showing. I heard the incident where near Kumbi, one a boy called as David, he was beheaded and his head was hanged on a bamboo pole for a few days. Then this incident of rape with the daughter of where this Kargil war veteran was involved, and all these things. And again, this incident in Thowai where people were decapitated first. So the kind of hatred which is being shown is not an indication of a good society. Something is wrong. Yours.
Okay. Okay. Oh, Brijesh also joins us. Thank you, Brijesh, for joining me. Yesterday when we discussed the Ukhrul killing, we did not have these details. But there is also one thing I would like to tell you. A delegation had met the President of India, and she has expressed concern over the relief camp. And yesterday, one of the guests was saying that the politician and the chief minister, they're not going to relief camp for the out of security reason. Now, if they don't go to the relief camps, Brijesh, and the president of India is expressing concern, how will these relief camps improve? Can you unmute yourself, Brijesh? Unmute yourself.
Sorry about that. One thing which we also discussed about, how, when we spoke about how the MLA should attend assembly to record their testimony, to make sure that they are part of the history. There was another side which was very egregious, if I may say so, is the fact that the Manipur chief minister is because of the same security fears, could not visit any of the relief camp. So the point which is emerging right now is that, irrespective of what people at the top are saying, and it is people at the top only, Kartikeya, who can put us or send a message of peace and tranquility. They are the only one. I think the Manipur chief minister is the only one, a person who can actually spread an honest word about how exactly the situation will come back to normalcy. And the fact is that, all the effort has to come from his side, because now almost everything is reporting to him. You have
Okay.
the Assam rifles removed from the areas, and we saw what happened yesterday in Ukhrul, and also
Okay.
the fact that, that there's a concerted attempt at attack on the Assam rifles. So all of that changes are done at the behest of either the.
Okay. I think there's a bit of a problem. Am I audible to you, all of you?
Yes, Kartikeya,
Yes.
you order.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
I'm saying that that the chief minister has to go out and visit those relief camps. The chief minister has to ensure that a message of peace
Absolutely.
and security should step down. We cannot blame an individual or the MLAs or anybody else for that. And it is extremely unfortunate, Kartikeya. It is extremely unfortunate that the first person of this country, I mean, the president of India, has to express concern about the kind of conditions which are there in the relief camp. I think nothing could be more tragic than this.
And now I'm going to take out two newspapers. One is Times of India, and another is Hindustan Times. And I'll read this. And Suhasi, I would like you to come, and then Vijay Sahib, you can come. It says, it quotes, the SP said security measures were bolstered in joint operation by the state police and the Indian army were underway to nab the people involved in the murder. A senior officer of Assam Rifle, that is Hindustan Times report, said that an outpost was functioning 3 kilometers from the village earlier but was shifted week ago. There was another operation in which the team was needed to go around 3 weeks ago. They were sent to another place, the officer said, seeking anonymity. Now, Suhaji, are operational details leaking out or something like that? There was a post, it moves out because of operational reason and an attack takes place?
Well, absolutely. I mean, not today, from the beginning, and that's why the entire distrust. I mean, if you look at the distrust of the Meiteis on the Assam Rifles, and if you look at the distrust of the Kukis on the Meitei administrators, so it's very clear, and that's why also the demand for separate, DGP or separate chief secretary, etc., are coming up, uh, and operational details, are simultaneously and regularly being leaked out. So it's not a surprise that the operational details have been leaked out, and the areas which become vulnerable and attacks take place, on those areas. And it has been a concern, and that's why from the beginning, I think, why the conflict, spread, and why the arms we are looted. Please remember, how the arms looting, or arms being handed over, whatever took place. How would civilians know that there are so many arms, or in this particular place arms are, stored, etc.? Obviously there has to be some kind of leakage. Even if
Okay.
you go inside the police station, not everybody knows where is the place the arms are kept
Okay.
within
And
the police station.
because
So
the reason
I
why
would
I'm
say
asking you is, the paper clearly states, the reporter, he was on the ground and he says that there was an outpost. Mr. Bansal, there was an outpost, operational reason, अलग जगह चली गई. तो my question was कि क्या इस तरह की details leak out हो रहे हैं? How do these guys know कि यहाँ एक armed position थी, वो गायब हो गई है, those people are not coming back, and they organize an assault. And do you think this is somewhere related to the 5th of August Bishnupur violence, sir? Major
Sir,
Bansal?
yes, see, if we talk about the operational details being leaked out, so I personally would not agree to it, because if there's an Assam Rifle post, it is moved out, everybody watches it.
Okay.
Everybody is there. People are there in the villages. They know that there was a group of people who were staying on this hill. Now they moved out, so they are seeing that vacuum. It did not happen immediately after that post was moved out. It happened few days after the post moved out. So people were watching that. Yes, let the post move out. They were waiting. Okay, 1 day they didn't come. 2 days they didn't come. 3 days they didn't come. So now they know that they are engaged somewhere else. So it is an ideal time to attack. So people who have attacked the post, that Kuki village, I would call them the spoilers. Even the people who attacked in Kwakta in Vishnupur, killed three of the people from Meitei community, I will call them spoilers.
Why do you use the word spoilers, sir? Why do you use the word spoilers?
At this point of time, when the state is going through a very critical phase, we have to achieve peace. We have to maintain trust among the communities. And to maintain trust among the communities, we have to maintain peace for some time, so that people are get time to come out of their fear. People are able to come out of their apprehensions, and they are ready to talk. Now, what
Okay.
happens? You are doing something and everything is happening, and all of a sudden, there one incident takes place. Now, the entire atmosphere gets disturbed for 15, 20 days. By the time people are coming out of this first incident, and again talking of normalcy, you have another incident. Another, the game is spoiled for another 15, 20 days. So, question is that if these kind of spoiling attacks keep on happening, how will the peace come in the state? And the onus lies on the both communities. You are calling that Meitei hardliners, or I will call them maybe Kuki hardliners. So
So
these
I asked you a
hardliners,
specific context. Is it related to the Bishnupur violence, sir?
it could be related to Bishnupur violence, because in Bishnupur they say the people were attacked and their bodies were cut. Similarly, here also the kind of vengeance was seen. People were initially shot and their bodies were cut. So it is a similar kind of thing. So it shows that, yes, of course, looks like a reaction to the Bishnupur violence.
Okay. Bhagat Saab, I have some papers today. So, it's better I quote them, show it to you. So, there, in Times of India, it says the attack in a Naga dominated area may have been planned to create mistrust between tribal communities in the restive state and also disturb ongoing peace talks held by the center with both NSCN, IM, and Kuki outfits. Is it an overreach, or do you think that there is an element of truth in it, sir?
See, I think Major Bansal has already mentioned about this, that those areas in which these Kuki volunteers or villagers were killed, uh, immediately I do not think there are Meitei inhabitants nearby. So uh, every doubt of involving of third party cannot be totally ruled out. But it is too early to come to a conclusion. But this is becoming more and more murky. The point that you must see is that it is now not more the Meitei and Kuki. You must have also noticed Meitei Pangals, Muslims, are also slowly getting dragged in by their own choice or by the circumstances. Now, the Nagas are also coming to the forefront. UNC's declaration, please do not ignore this. UNC saying that our free framework agreement must be, heightened and fastened. The decision to arrive at Naga settlement. and with that coming this violence. So you have to now, even for a peace talk to come by, it cannot be any more Naga, Meitei, and Kuki. Stakeholder of Manipur, Nagas are equally strong. So they have to all come together and sit through, including smaller communities who are neither Naga or Kuki, but known by their smaller tribe communities, and Muslim even. They have to come together. Otherwise, no amount of talk, peace talk, is going to help. And so far as that Major was saying about the hardliner in both sides, I am also slowly seeing that any peace movement is going to scuttle because of these groups, and they are pretty strong in both sides. So, in this, I do not know whether, again, I'm using the word Major Saab doesn't like, Indian state, will really come or willing to come with a heavy hand, because the Kautilya Niti of Sam Dam Dand Bhed, somewhere you have to, if if people don't listen to, then
Bhagat
you
Sahab,
also
one thing I've decided, I'm also a learner in this profession, and I had discussed this. No one, at least on my program, will be allowed to call the other person anti-national. How hard the views. And Amit is a friend of mine. That is why we have worked together. तो ये मैं अपने लोगों के सामने भी मैं रखना चाहता हूँ. We have worked together for years. Uh, he's cut from a different cloth. But from now on, no one will be allowed to say anti-national to the other person, even how hard the view is. So that is something I wanted to share, because covering Manipur 110 days has also changed me a lot, and it has changed me in a different way. And the change is that when people feel strongly, when they feel, when they talk emotionally, they should be given a place to talk, because talking and having a conversation is a healing process. जो नहीं समझते हैं फिर उनके लिए पूरी जिंदगी है समझने के लिए, पर वो civilized society का starting point होता है बातचीत. That makes it different from the animals, because animals can't hold conversations. So please go ahead.
Okay,
Please go
just
ahead.
wanted to say one thing, Kartikeya. I think Professor Bhagat has misunderstood me. So when I spoke about the geography of this area, I said the Naga villages are located far away, but this village, Thowai Kuki, where the incident has taken place, it is in close proximity, 1.5 to 2 kilometers from the nearest Meitei villages. Like Yanglang Pokpi is the place which is right next to the hill where when you get down from this village, get down to the hills and touch the plains. There is a river, and next to the river there is a Meitei village called Yanglang Pokpi, which lies in the Imphal East district. So the village is actually located in the close proximity of the Meitei villages and quite far off from the Naga villages. So that's what I want to say. I think Professor Bhagat
So,
misunderstood
so
me.
Amit, basically what you're saying is that there is a possibility that this is like a revenge killing, Bishnupur, 5th of
Yes,
August.
yes, exactly.
okay.
Basically, if I got you correctly, that this was like a tit for tat action. There was a Bishnupur incident, and then you had this incident. So my question, which Bhagat Sahab I was asking you, does it complicate the issue by getting the third party 110 days of our having this program? We never had this Ukhrul thing come into the conversation.
Yes.
It is for the first time in last 24 hours. I'm, at least, I have met you in the conferences also. You remember that no one spoke about the Ukhrul. The Ukhrul word did not come. And today we are talking about it.
Yeah, that is true. I stand corrected, because that geography particular of village I was not fully aware, but I was also keeping this in mind. You must have Kartikeya seen a viral about of an interview of a NSC and IM cadre about involvement of IM with some Meitei militant groups, which IM has refuted, saying that this guy was on leave and so on. But one thing is very clear: this guy is a Tangkhul, and things are getting complicated. It's no more going to be one-to-one group. So it's a multi-prone group conflict going to come. And finally, it is the Manipur which is heading towards, which I would be the last person not to support, that is balkanization, or what you saw Yugoslavia. Very unfortunate story.
No,
Uh,
you
that
know,
something I pray to God Almighty that doesn't happen.
you know, Suhaji, there was a newspaper report which I read in the web when I had finished the day, that in the Ukhrul, the United Naga body is objecting to the creation of permanent structure. So it's so strange. You have displacement of people, and you have a third party saying that the displaced people do not have the right for a permanent structure. And I mean to say there has been no criticism of it. No one has spoken about it.
No, as I said,
Everyone is okay.
I think when the judgment, yes, when the judgment of the Imphal High Court had come out, I think it was on 19th April or something like that. I was approached by Naga groups seeking my opinion on the judgment, which I gave,
Okay.
saying that this is a long-term
When was
process,
that, sir? When
nothing
was
wrong
that?
with it. I mean, ultimately, that was in April, much before the
April.
dialogue. So when the Naga
Okay.
groups approached me about about how to get scheduled track status, and I explained it to them. There has to be a study. The study goes to the Registrar General of India, the Ministry of NCST has to be involved. Then it goes to the cabinet. The cabinet gets approved. Then it goes to the Parliament, etc. It's a long run process. It's as easy as pointed out. Then I sent them the judgments. So when I was talking to them, even at that point of time, the Nagas were already expressing concerns on two issues. One, the issue of grant of SC status to the Meiteis, and second, if something comes out, whether the Nagas will be overwhelmed by the cookies. So that's why I said in the beginning, the concerns of the Nagas, and once the riot started, when I was taking some interviews from some of the journalists, was that if the cookies who are displaced from the hills, from the valley, and if they go to the hills, if they have more resources than the Nagas, then they will buy lands in the Ukhrul town and etc. And they become minority. The Nagas become minority. So they may not have figured in the discussions because no violence had taken place. But the Nagas were already apprehensive about. So now today, if, as I said, I mean, someone's repeating the same thing. The Nagas are very wary about the talks between the cookies and the government of India, and what kind of arrangements shall be made for the cookies. Because if that is made, then the first point of view of the NSCNIM, which is more powerful in Ukhrul than in Nagaland, is that is that going to threaten this framework of agreement? Is it going to threaten the greater Nagaland area? If certain areas which may be very far from the Naga inhabited areas, if that is within the Ukhrul district, Nagas shall claim that. Please remember that. So there are all these conflicts surrounds
Swazi,
on one issue.
let me be the
Geography.
devil's advocate. Let me be the devil's advocate. We have spoken from multiple points of views, but doesn't that make Meiteis even more insecure? That first you have the issue of Nagaland, then you have the issue of Jelangam, then you have the issues of Kuki. The whole majority having a minority complex is emanating from the fact that the Manipur, one of the, I think, third tiniest state in India after Tripura and Sikkim. Further division is being wanted. Bhagat Sahab, it doesn't justify any violence, but it tells you what's
Just,
going on in the mind.
just one small point before Bhagat comes in, if I may.
Absolutely, sir.
Yeah, just one point. I think in the beginning of the year, when the evictions from the villages were taking place, forest encroachment, etc. At that point of time, Naga civil society groups and Meitei civil society groups, we are almost on the same platform as far as the cookies were concerned. And prior to that, in fact, when the Nagas, the NSC and I am the government of India are talking, the main contention was between the Nagas and the Meiteis. When the ceasefire agreement was extended to all the Naga inhabited areas, irrespective of the territories, there was a huge protest in the Imphal Valley, and to the point of even burning down the state assembly. So So at some point of time, the Nagas and the Meiteis we are in conflict. But once the cookies came up and this whole foreigner issue came up, the cookies coming from Burma, in the beginning of this year, the Naga civil society groups and the Meitei civil society groups, we are almost on the same platform to address the
Okay.
cookie concerns. So these have been changing over time.
Okay. No. People definitely, let me be the devil's advocate. I'm saying people understand the cookie concern. People understand the Naga concern. In terms of the historicity of the separate homeland. Sociologically, every government has tried its best to accommodate it. But what about the Meitei concern? The majority, having the feeling of being besieged. That is also a justified question, and I think I'm right to put it, Mr. Bhagat. Can you unmute yourself?
Can I come in now? Yeah.
Absolutely.
See, this is the point that, please forgive me my saying this. This is no hard feelings to any community. But unfortunately or fortunately, Meitei, by their now strength, if you include the Muslims who speak the same Meitei language, it is 53%. If you remove the Meitei Muslims, then it is 44%, right? So they are not even absolute majority in that sense, unlike previous census reports. That is one. Secondly, so anxiety, I'm talking of Meitei's anxiety, that the kind of dominance and comfort they used to enjoy, they are no more enjoying that. So you can see that anxiety reflecting in the kind of violence that is coming out. I never expected Meiteis to be so hostile and violent. Second is that during Suhas also mentioned during this 2001, that burning of the assembly, state assembly, that 3 words without territorial limit on the Naga Act, not a single Naga were attacked. So it was not people to people. Meiteis hesitated, but against the state government, against the government of India. So the target was that the state is a responsible agency to whom we as a citizen have to rely on has not delivered, and we challenge the state. So it comes in the violent form, unfortunately, though. But this time, what has happened is that cookies, instead of targeting the state government, and so to say, even if you personalize Chief Minister N. Biren Singh, which they did not, except burning down his effigy, what actually came out, the spurt of anger, is to the innocent Meitei villagers who are very poor in the peripheries of the valley or small-time business groups in Churachandpur area. So you can see that the anger of the Kuki Chin group were targeted to the Meitei community. This was unexpected and strongly objected by the Meiteis, and retaliation comes very big. And I don't know if these days I say things and then there are lots of contempt keep coming. So this time the Meiteis may again criticize me. Cookies are already unhappy with me. जो होते हैं ना आपकी जो मेजॉरिटी थिंग्स कि भाई हमारा 12-13 लाख है,
अगर
आपको
अगर
5
भगत साहब, अगर
हाँ।
दोनों नाराज हैं आपसे, फिर इसका मतलब आप सच बोल रहे हैं।
तो हम
अगर दोनों समुदाय
उस
नाराज
हद
हैं आपसे,
तक
तो
सच
सच
बोल
बोल
रहे
रहे
हैं।
हैं।
तो मेजर साहब भी नाराज थे, शायद धीरे धीरे आप मुझे जानिएगा। तो ये
नहीं, he's cut from a different cloth. वही तो मैं बोल रहा हूँ, अमित is cut from a different cloth.
Major
नहीं,
issues
ऐसे
I agree
नाराज
with you.
मैतेई
नहीं, ऐसे
रिएक्शन,
नाराज नहीं होते।
हाँ मैतेई रिएक्शन जो है ना, जो एक होते हैं कि हमारा 12-13 लाख का है, आप 4-5-6 लाख हो और आपकी क्या औकात है। That is the anger, that how dare you do. Somewhere down the line, I felt that was the feeling that the majority Meiteis have had. And that is why the violence went on to people. And very interestingly, what I have observed, none of the cookies, Joe, traditionally have never been fighting the Indian security forces. They have never fought. And this is what they have declared. And I think Major Saab will also educate me on this. The Meitei insurgents have always been targeting the Indian state, whether it is army, CRPF, Assam Rifles. But this time, when Assam Rifles is there, they will not fire. Very interestingly. So none of the Meitei groups, whether it is volunteers or otherwise, I don't know, the Meitei groups are not targeting the Indian security forces at all. That means none of these warring groups are against the Indian state security forces. They are hitting at each other, and somewhere the security forces are mediator or watchdog, what you
No,
call.
I
They are
understand
like
what you're
UN
saying.
peacekeeping forces coming by,
No,
except for
no,
certain.
it's a relevant point.
Yeah,
Amit, you want
please.
to comment? You comment. I know
Yes,
what
yes.
you're
I would
trying to
like to
say.
comment. I would like to comment.
Bilkul,
Yes,
sure, Amit.
yes,
I understand what he's saying, because that's what I had been saying repeatedly, that the nature of the violence is different. It's not directed against the assets of the Indian
yes,
state.
yes.
There
Yeah,
is
I'm
no
coming on
ire
to
at
that.
the assembly. There is no ire at the establishment. It's between communities. The nature
I'm
is
coming on
different.
to that.
Amit, please.
I'm coming
Yeah,
on to
please,
that.
please go ahead.
So I would like to explain the reason why Meitei groups are or valley-based groups are not attacking the security forces. I'll take back about 2.5 years back. I was talking to one of the person who just came back from the valley and Manipur Valley, and we were talking about that time. People were talking about the removal of Armed Forces Special Power Act from Imphal area. So he said there is a strategy at which the Manipuri groups are working out. The valley-based groups are working out. They are working with a strategy that we will not carry out any kind of violent act against the security forces in the valley area. So as a result, if there are no violent act against the security forces in valley area for a prolonged time, then government may take up the case for repulsion of armed forces special power act from the valley. And once it is removed, then of course you can stay without any fear, because there will not be any kind of cordon and search operation. There will not be any. So valley can become a safe haven for you once the AFSPA is removed. So it came out as a strategy not today but 2 years back. Today also, when large scale violence is taking place, valley based groups know, and I'm telling you without offending anybody, valley based groups know that the moment they start attacking the security forces, it will give a reason to the central government to reimpose Armed Forces Special Power Act, and then their safe havens located in the valley will be disturbed. So that is the real reason. And any security expert, or you can talk to any army officer, will agree with this statement. Not because that they
Amit,
have changed their mind and they're not
Amit,
attacking.
it is also because of a different reason. You would know historically, and any one of you can comment. I was going through a couple of books to educate myself on, again, since I hold this discussion every day, that the early Meiteis group were inspired by the sort of revolutionary sentiment of Bengalis, socialist or pre-pack, uh, Irobat, if I'm spelling the word correctly, Irobat, those were inspired by different ideals. The insurgencies uh, in the hills, and the nature of the Presbyterian Christian activism of 90 years, last 90 years, changed the profile of the hill areas, and the profile of the valley was different. So you had different things happening at different point of time. And it is for this reason that Nagaland behaves differently, Mizoram behaves differently after Lal Denga Accord, and Manipur behaves differently. Isn't that, Suhasji?
No, I think I'll not go into the historical aspect. I think there's a practical aspect. And if you look at the interview of Sanayama, the UNLF chief, his opinion on this conflict, it's very interesting. And I think what we have to bear in mind is that uh, I may possibly being devil's advocate. See, insurgent
You
groups
stole my
belonging
word.
to,
I am supposed to be the devil's advocate
yes,
here.
yes, the insurgent groups of the valley, for their survival, they have to operate to a large extent from Myanmar. And to cross over to Myanmar, you basically have to either go through the um, Kuki inhabited areas or the Naga inhabited areas. I think one of the outcomes which comes out of this conflict is basically limiting the operations of the valley based insurgent groups. When the riots took place in 92 93 between the Kukis and the Nagas, the government of India no longer had to monitor the activities of the NSC and IM in the Kuki inhabited areas, because Kukis at that point of time were willing to kill the Nagas. So I think one of the reasons why the valley-based insurgent groups have remained silent or trying to maintain absolute neutrality is because of the fact that See, lots of their cadres or the headquarters, they are based not in the valley, but based in Myanmar side. So that's one of the factor. And for the government of India and the security forces, if there are conflicts which are taking place in different communities, it basically means Kukis will be remain confined to Kuki areas, which Oinam had said they never fire at the Indian security forces. Nagas will remain confined to Naga inhabited areas, and of course, Meiteis, if you have to cross over to the Myanmar side, it becomes very, very difficult because you have to go to the civilian area. So that's why, if you have looked at it, though there are allegations against the groups who are involved in the suspension of operations that they engaged in killings and etc. I mean, you cannot find any Kuki group actually making a statement saying that the valley-based insurgent groups are involved in these, that, etc. So these are realities. I mean, everybody has, or every group, not everybody, every group
No, that is
has
why I
its
asked
own
the
interest.
question.
Yeah.
I had no idea of the Meitei insurgencies of 50s and 60s and 70s and its connection with the revolutionary Bengal. After I started doing this program and I read the history of pre-pack, Oinam sahab, Irobat is the correct word.
Irabot,
IROBAT.
Irabot Singh.
Irabot Singh. When I
He
read
was a
about
left
Irabot,
communist. Yeah.
a communist. Irabot Singh was a communist. He was a Meitei. In Delhi, I used to think, okay, every militancy is in the hill area. What is the narrative? वहाँ अच्छा वहाँ क्रिश्चियन रहते हैं, कन्वर्जन हो गया, वो तो सब बॉस, they are not true to the Indian state. See, this is how narratives work, na. We have to be honest. That's how narrative work. अच्छा ये मैती है, सनामही है, हिंदू है, they are loyal to the Indian state. So when I started reading book, the history is far more complex. It's far bigger than religion. Then I realized it. No, I could never understand that how revolutionary Bengal and communism had an effect on a society which has changed through Vaishnavism. And I was in a seminar where Mr. Bhagat Saab was there, and one of the people said the Vaishnavism came with the Vaishnavism. The caste structure also came to Manipur, and it also impacted the dynamics of the tribal interface. So these are complex issues. But coming back to the ground, 48 hours we have an assembly session. Brijesh, how do you see the boycott? Now it's official. First they were saying that they will not come. Now they are saying that they're going to skip assembly session in protest. I mean, so they could have put everything on record there. If MLAs don't come,
Kartikeya, I would say that.
how will you expect other people to come?
Well, when you say that they could put on record, whatever an MLA says is on record. I mean, if an MLA says something in a public rally, that is also on record. It's not like, the record is only there once you go to the assembly session and you speak only in assembly. What the biggest problem is that this division was witnessed right from the word go. Because, the first initially we saw 10 Kuki MLAs writing a letter to Home Ministry. They're writing a letter to the Prime Minister's office. They are casting all kind of aspersions on the N. Biren Singh government. So the divide is very deep, and they have exhibited it not once but several times. That they're not comfortable with the scenario. And when they say the word security, and we kind of because we are not exactly in the kind of scenario they are in. When we have the Chief Minister of the state not able to visit those relief camps because of security concerns, when he has the entire might of the state, how can we, cast a finger at an ordinary MLA that he is afraid of a particular scenario getting out of hand, or a particular security scenario? I mean, he's also
it is so funny that the symbols of state are supposed to unite. The flag, the parliament, the symbol of Indian Army. It represents the unity.
Theoretically, yes. Kartikeya, theoretically, yes.
Symbolically, I don't want to use the word practice and theory. Symbolically, they are supposed to unite. Independence Day got celebrated differently. Assembly में है तो उसकी legitimacy is being questioned
but when
differently.
people are getting shot at, when people are getting killed, when your villages are getting
I'm
burned,
not arguing
where is
with
the
you.
time for symbolism? You and I can
Assam
discuss
Rifle,
symbolism sitting here in
Manipur
Delhi.
police
They
represent
don't
the
have
might
luxury.
of the state. They are separate. This separateness in context of the symbols which represent unity is very disturbing, Amit.
I have a question, Kartikeya. I was just trying to speculate. See, on one hand, none of the minister oblique MLA of Manipur, or even the chief minister, is going to the relief camps because of the security reasons, because they're afraid of kind of violence. They said because
And today the
security
president
reasons.
of India has expressed concern.
Yes,
Draupadi Murmu
especially
ji
when
has
the president
expressed
of India has
concern,
expressed concern,
and it has
still they are
come out
not
on
able to
paper.
go. Yes, and still they are
Yes.
not able to go out, come out of their residences and go to visit the relief camps. How can they expect that they'll call for an assembly session and the
Exactly. This
Kuki
is
MLAs,
exactly what I was saying, Major.
MLAs
This
who
is
are being
exactly
killed,
what I was
who are
saying.
being killed? See, in Delhi, you can go and see this Mr. Walte. He's in a vegetative state. He can't even move his fingers. He was bashed so badly. He's
Exactly.
almost like a vegetative state. So when such thing is happening, what can you expect that some Kuki MLA from Churachandpur will come to Imphal to attend the assembly session when you yourself cannot go out of your house to visit the relief camps? So the atmosphere of fear is so much. So when there's so much of fear, atmosphere of fear, what is the need to call an assembly session? See,
So
Manipur needs a healing touch. Manipur
तो
needs a
हीलिंग
healing
टच
touch.
का क्या मतलब है? हीलिंग टच, आई डोंट वांट टू कोट पीपल, पर ये जो नैरेटिव है नॉर्थ इंडिया में, अरे नॉर्थ ईस्ट की चीजें लंबा वक्त लेती हैं ठीक होने में. फॉर मी, आई थिंक दैट्स द प्रॉब्लम. आई
No,
डोंट
because
वांट
you
टू.
don't, because you're not that concerned, Kartikeya, because you're not that invested. Had this been happening in a state of Uttar Pradesh or Bihar or Haryana or Punjab or anybody, by now, heads would roll. Northeast is far
Absolutely.
east. And people are not concerned. That is the reason why
नहीं,
it is
मैं तो
taking
आगाज
100 days,
सुना,
200
लोगों ने
days.
बोला पीपल हु रिपोर्ट एंड अदर थिंग, मैं डिटेल में जाना नहीं चाहता, तो they were like very information fed, and they said, yeah, you don't understand, Kartikeya, it takes time in northeast, and someone took out certain events from 81, 91, 2001. So I was just thinking, should northeast be part of that loop कि उतना ही बड़ा रहेगा? Can't it be shortened? That's the lazy way of interacting with reality. That's the lazy way. Oinam ji, can you unmute yourself? Unmute yourself.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
See, after all, you have to have a state assembly coming. Such a big
Correct.
problem politically, people dying. And there are lots of limitations within the state forces. That is why central paramilitary forces have to come in. And nearly 60,000 central paramilitary forces. Still, the violence not being contained means that there are political issues much more bigger than the merely security. So, to that extent, let us respect that assembly is within its own parameter, is a sacred institution of people's representation. So, somewhere down the line, you have to have a state assembly. That is what governor also has said, that you have to do it as early as possible. Now, about the security of the 10 state assembly MLAs. Now, I do not know how serious, how threat life could be to them. I am no one sitting in Delhi at this point to say. But there are also other means like what we are doing at the moment through online. So, even that possibility of having their voices heard must be allowed in the floor of the assembly, whether they are speaking from Delhi or they are speaking from Churachandpur or Kangpokpi. So, there are technological means through which the people, elected members, have to
Hybrid
discuss
session,
how
sir.
threat behavior.
Hybrid session. Hybrid session.
Yes, they have to do it because just to say that they are not going to be present, so you don't allow the state assembly to come, means that you have to allow this embargo to continue, limbo,
Okay.
that
So there are two things.
violence
There are two
continues.
things. Absolutely. There are two things. Amit, I'm going to come to you. Suhas, is it about security or is it about legitimacy? So then the question comes down to this: security or legitimacy?
No, see, at the end of the day, Biren Singh is not taking action because he has political compulsions. BJP leadership and the central government are not taking appropriate action because they have political compulsions or considerations which are far more important than restoring peace and security. So if you ask a Kuki MLA, if he goes there without some kind of a settlement with respect to their demands, whether it's territory or the administration or the safety and security, what do you get by participating only in the election, only in the state assembly? So I think the idea of holding the assembly sessions without, first of all, coming to some kind of broad agreement that this is what we are going to do, or we're going to find a solution. 1 month delay would not have, caused anything. Rather, you have basically cemented the divisions further. So I think the actions which are being taken by the government of India at this stage is, in my view, they have been left to officials who do not have the full leverage to take decisions. At the same point of time, those who will take the decision, the final political leadership, they are so busy with other issues. And my fear is, in a month's time, when the elections that take place in these 4 or 5 big states, the Home Minister himself will forget there is something called Manipur.
Okay.
And if the
Okay. There
violence
is a
break
bite.
out,
Fahaz,
then
there's a,
we will have
I'll
a
come to you.
situation.
I'll come to you, Brijesh. There's a small bite I need to play it out. काफी देर से रुकी हुई है. Let us play that bite.
The CM has already proclaimed that let us forgive and forget, and we will live together as before. But 2 days after his voice, this incident happened. So we lost 3 innocent villagers from Thowai. Where is our right to live? This inhuman, this barbaric act done by the Meitei militants are really condemned by all we Kuki people across everywhere. And not only this, Apswa is taken out in Valley. Is it because to make
Pretty angry. So, pretty angry. This is one bite, pretty angry. That we came down to the same issue, the same thing being spoken by people. Brijesh, you wanted to come in?
Well, Kartikeya, what I wanted to say is that, since yesterday, the last evening program also, I made a similar point that, when you are looking at the security concern, you cannot take one person's security concern more seriously than the other person's security concern. If the chief minister, cabinet minister, everybody can have a legit security concerns, so can have the Kuki MLAs. And the second part is the political angle of it. Because in the middle of all this simmering, in the middle of all this, the kind of the bad phase which the state of Manipur is going through, the politics is also there. Please try to understand, that N. Biren Singh is not being seen to do a single thing which puts him at crossroads with the majority Meitei community. Then how do you expect the 10 Kuki MLAs do something which goes against their own clientele, their own voters? Nobody wants to finish off their political career also. So, so until unless there is something substantial on the table, until unless there's something so substantial on the
Isn't
table
that bit rich? No one wants to finish their political careers when you have got so much of problem.
But Kartikeya, that is how it has been. 1947 onwards, I can rattle off thousands of examples. Mainland, remote hinterland, politics has been the mainstay. What are you saying? I mean, had this not been politics, Kartikeya, in the 108 days of coverage, I mean, Major Bansal is there, Oinam Bhagat is there, you are there, Suhas Chakma is there. Answer me one question, Kartikeya, all the retired major generals, all the brigadiers, all the lieutenant generals who have served in Manipur, who have gone out of, who have now have retired or taken retirement, and Kuki community, they are all asking for AFSPA to be imposed or president rule to be imposed. All of them.
Correct.
All of them. I mean, I have not met a single
correct.
individual who comes from a military background, Kartikeya, who has not asked for it. So why is the government not taking action like on the lines of that? I mean, are you trying to say that all those lieutenant generals with whom you entrusted the security of the country, will they have biased interest against the central government? No, they don't. But then, will you implement it? No, you won't. Why won't you implement it? Politics. Because you don't want to...
Kartikeya, can I come in? I have to leave.
Please come in. Please come in.
My last comment, I have to leave. I told you.
Come in. Please come in. Then Amit ji wants to.
I will take a slightly different view. I have told this point also earlier that you begin a political dialogue on one side and violence erupting here and now. It's going to, cast some kind of a doubt on each other. But that remains to be said. So let government decide on what to be done about curbing the violence. But what is more important is, no matter the government decides something, It is the people who are involved from the grassroots itself. And already we all know the anger is there in the grassroots in both sides. So somewhere the track two possibility of a dialogue somehow must be initiated. Maybe without the politicians, maybe some civil society groups who can uh, talk to each other, maybe some third party civil society groups. That is what I think is the need of the hour.
Okay. Okay.
Unless you do that, things are not going to be that easy. My fear is, in spite of my saying that, well, somehow Chanakya Niti has to be done. If nothing happens, then, the state force has to come. But then the question is the collateral damage. Is the Indian state ready for that? For such kind of a conflict, which is very large scale on the people to people fighting with one another. It's not an enemy. Yeah.
Chanakya Niti or something like Gandhi in Noakhali. Anyway, those are two different strands of sociology. I have not used the word Gandhigiri. It's like I don't want to dumb it down, but I use the word Gandhi in Noakhali because that's the most splendid example of anyone trying to bring peace in times of convoluted narratives based on ethnicity and religion in a multi-ethnic, multi-religious, and a multi-racial country. Amit, please.
Yes. So I wanted to talk about when there was a mention of the assembly session. So when two communities are fighting with each other, they're bloodthirsty. That the amount of hate is so much that you can't even see each other's face. In such situation, when you want the democracy to be involved, you have to bring them on the same platform. You have to bring them on equal platform so that they can talk. But the Manipur assembly is a very unique assembly where out of 60 MLAs, you have 40 MLAs from Meitei community, and 10 out of which one is in a vegetative state. You can say 9 MLAs are from Kuki community. So can these 9 MLAs raise their voice, and what is the guarantee that their voice will be
Okay.
heard in an assembly where there is already a two? Let me finish. Where there is already two-third majority of Meiteis, will they allow their voice to be heard? Number two, again talk about civil society. When civil societies will have to be engaged in talks, again they have to create a neutral platform. No, who is entrusted with the responsibility of creating the neutral platform? It is the central government. At the same time, they have left everything to the state government, and the state government lost the faith of one particular community. And the third and the last thing I would like to convey, Kartikeya, there is one aspect of this entire violence which is forgotten from everybody, and that is the humanitarian crisis. Because of last 108 days, 109 days, there is continuous blockades in Manipur, because of which supplies are either not reaching or reaching in a very, very small amount. Churachandpur, for last 108 days, the entire road going to Churachandpur has been blocked. The Mira pipes are sitting over there. Not even a single vehicle is passing. Similarly, in Kangpokpi and all these
Okay.
areas, the supplies coming from Dimapur is blocked.
It's so
There are
good,
no-
Amit, you spoke about
no rice.
humanitarian crisis. It is so good. And I promise all of you that I'm going to hold a debate on humanitarian crisis in
Yes.
Manipur. People think that, it's very good to hold debates on those points in which, somehow people react. But I'm going to hold this debate. But the larger point is what will happen on Monday. What will happen when the session resumes in the Manipur assembly? How will MLAs talk to each other? Will there be a statement by Biren Singh? Will the Kuki MLAs change their mind? Will there be a recording, official recording of what has happened in Manipur? Where there will be a official memory of the collective violence which we have seen? Because memory needs to be codified and recorded for people to study, for the events not to be repeated. Any historian, sociologist, any person working with people would understand the power of the recorded word. And I think the assembly is very important for that. Now, people can have different views, but for me, the most important thing is that the people somehow need to record what has happened so that those mistakes are not committed again. It cannot be one narrative against another narrative. It cannot be my narrative against your narrative. And I hope the symbols of unity unite, and I hope they are not used separately in the state of Manipur. So Manipur is not an ending story. nor is News9 commitment to Manipur to cover it. And and the bottom line is that somehow I agree with all the panelists that there has to be a far more serious resolve shown by the state and commitment shown by the civil society activists to mellow down hardness in the conversation and to ensure at least there are talks. I think that is the bottom line.
We won!